Welcome to the Marketplace Fees Exposed webinar. So today we're going to be talking about growth and scaling and how that relates to your profitability and the fees and expenses that you pay on your stores and just your business as a whole. My name is John. I am the Customer and Engagement Manager here at Webgility. Also the face of Webgility. Whether I liked it or not, my face is plastered just about everywhere these days. I've been with Webgility for going on 2 years now. I started out in implementation, so I have a lot of product knowledge, hands-on product knowledge with Webgility and e-commerce in general, understanding how e-commerce automation works and accounting and inventory and all things that come with running an online store. So today we're going to be talking about a number of things. First of which being marketplaces and channels. So like those independent stores, the custom built stores, ones that aren't necessarily open marketplaces, and the costs associated with them. So things like the fees that are associated with the marketplace that you're joining or that you already have, and then stores that you might open up in tandem with that. And then we'll talk about profitability and expenses, what exactly that means to be profitable on a product basis, on a business wide basis, how to recognize what's costing you money, and then how to kind of get around that with some tips and tricks, things that you can do to minimize the amount of expense that you're paying and maximize that growth and profitability. And then we'll end it with a discussion on the difference between multi and omni-channel. I think it's a really important discussion to have in today's climate with all the tools and technology revolving around e-commerce and the things that you can do to, again, maximize that growth and the interconnectivity between your stores. And along with that comes data analytics and using business analytics and that sort of reporting and data to make decisions for your business on the future and plan again for that growth, with automation being that final puzzle piece that kind of connects everything together. So to get started, hi Vanessa, I saw that you're from San Diego. Samuel, you're from Dallas. Good to see we got people all over. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, so we're a little heavy on the West Coast, but good to see where people are at. So to start, again, we're going to talk about what the cost of expanding in e-commerce means. So what stores or marketplaces are charging for you to even just do business on the platform. But before we get started, I did want to know, I'll just run a quick poll. Are you comfortably aware of how much you're paying in fees and expenses for your orders? So this is just a yes or no poll. Should be pretty quick. Let me go ahead and launch it here. And I'll give you guys a minute or so just to answer that. Again, just yes or no. I would assume most of you aren't super comfortable, being that that's kind of what the webinar is tailored around. But even if you are comfortable with or aware of the fees and expenses that you're paying in your store, I'm hoping that you get a lot of information out of this webinar in terms of like what you can do and those, again, little tips and tricks on growth and getting around those expenses. So I'm going to share the poll results here for you guys. It looks like I thought, a majority of you said no, and then a couple of you did say yes. So I'm hoping that we can get some value out of that for you guys that are comfortable and aware. All right, so moving on. We'll start with, again, the marketplace options, the storefront and channel options, and what fees you're paying. And this is just a majority of the like the listing and like actual startup fees or subscriptions that you might be paying on these marketplaces or stores. So we'll start with Amazon because that is obviously the most popular option for not only buyers, because that's, I mean, you can't mention e-commerce without talking about Amazon for a majority of the conversation. But one thing to note is that none of these marketplaces require that you have a subscription to sell on the platform. Some of them do offer subscriptions that give you perks and discounts on listings and inventory storage and stuff of that nature, but none of them flat out require that you have a membership necessarily to sell on the platform. I will note that while Amazon doesn't require a platform or a subscription, it does have a per listing fee that you pay. For the individual plan, it's 99 cents for every item that you sell. And for the pro plan, it becomes a subscription at that point for just around $40 a month. Some other options that you have, because it's important to talk about the options that you have as a seller to expand, and maybe you're not happy with your current marketplace, you feel like you're paying too many fees. It's important to know what options you have that are available to you to lower your budget or to make an easy expansion in the future. So eBay has plans for just about any budget. I'm sure everybody knows what eBay is all about and kind of how it got its start. It was more popular than every other option on this list at some point. But it is a solid option for those that maybe run a like a la carte business where they're selling not necessarily a stock of inventory, but maybe a couple things here and there. Etsy has an Etsy Plus plan for $10 a month. And that's pretty like standard. They also have some of the lowest listing fees across any of these marketplaces. So something to keep in mind there. And then Walmart, I would like to call out as kind of like an up and coming option in competition with Amazon. Obviously you see Amazon everywhere, and that's probably around half of all searches start on Amazon. But something that we found is that Walmart is kind of that runner up. It's becoming a lot more prevalent in today's climate when people are starting searches. Walmart's an easily recognizable name, so it does make sense that people trust the brand, and it functions very similar to Amazon in its like drop shipping workflows and stuff like that. So it should be familiar to anybody that does already sell on Amazon and maybe looking to start in a new place. Another kind of thing to call out here is that you don't have to pay a fee or have any subscription to sell with Walmart. Only fill out a request to sell form and have it approved by Walmart directly. So that can take some time, but there is no actual investment in getting started there. And alongside marketplaces, obviously this isn't the main draw or the main topic of conversation here, but it is important to call out the options that you have that aren't marketplaces, maybe more of a custom store situation where you're using their platform as a way to kind of supplement your Amazon store or something like that, maybe create a more personal or exclusive situation. Shopify is the most popular here. I'm sure everybody's heard of Shopify, and they have plans similar to eBay for any scale of business, starting out $30 a month or $39 a month, scaling up to $399 for those medium-sized businesses, and then it goes all the way up to $2,000 a month for those large-scale, high-order volume operations. BigCommerce is another competitor in the space and offers plans for any budget. BigCommerce and WooCommerce are very similar in that way that they kind of have a similar market share. And then Wix is another one that is a little more budget friendly, between $27 and $59 a month, with Squarespace being pretty similar in terms of pricing, with business and e-commerce plans between $30 and $49 a month. I didn't talk too much about the like perks and offerings included with any of these plans or subscriptions, mostly because they all are very similar in what they offer. When you look at the lower budget plans, it's very bare bones. It doesn't include a lot of perks, discounts, or like bulk, I guess, perks that come with that. But once you scale up, you'll get more perks and see a lot more of a benefit from paying that higher monthly fee. All right. And when we talk about fees and expenses that you're paying with your store, this doesn't only apply to those marketplaces. This does apply to those custom stores as well. It's important to talk about what fees you're going to be paying and what to look out for. So one of the biggest ones that you'll notice right away is the payment processing. Anytime that anybody buys anything online, it has to go through a payment processor to authenticate the payment details and make sure that the funds are transferred. So a lot of stores, we'll just use Amazon as an example, have that built-in native payment processing, but you can opt in a lot of instances to use a third-party processor. And one of the ways you can get around paying higher fees is using a third-party processor, maybe not one that's as large as something like authorized.net, that takes a smaller cut of your transaction. So just a small detail there. I don't think that it's going to break the bank to use a big payment processor, but it is something that in the grand scheme of things can make a difference. And then as far as listing goes, every marketplace specifically, maybe not custom stores, they do have listing fees. So putting stuff up on the website to be sold generally incurs a listing fee, specifically for Amazon and eBay for like the auction fees that you're going to be paying. This is a good thing. It might sound like it's just nickel and diming you, but the good thing about this is it lowers the amount of garbage that's out on these marketplaces. And while there still is plenty of, I guess, filler products or things that don't get sold, it's good to kind of narrow the playing field a little bit and make people think about what they want to sell before they put it out on the internet. Referral fees are a lot like listing fees in that instead of just listing it, it's whenever the transaction takes place, the store is going to get its cut, basically. So typically this for marketplaces is between 6 and 15%, and Etsy has the lowest of these with a flat 5% across its stores. After everything's said and done with Etsy, it ends up at about 6.5%. Shipping and fulfillment is another thing that I'm sure everybody's aware of when you're selling online. If it's not in-store pickup, you're going to have to find out some way to get it to the customer. And a lot of times that means that you're setting up an account with a shipping fulfillment center or a distribution to make sure that they get to the right place. And you're paying fees on those transactions yourself as well. Inventory and storage. If you have heavy items, the heavier they are, the more it's going to cost to store them, especially in the case of something like Amazon. And then, of course, things like chargeback fees. Chargebacks are something you always want to avoid, but it is inevitable. So it's, again, one of those things to consider when you're talking about all the different fees and expenses that you pay in your store. All right, and now that we've talked about what all of this is, what all the fees are, and kind of what to expect, we can talk about how it impacts your business on a profitability and expense level. And we can start by talking about what profitability is and how to understand getting your business to a profitable point. So the first thing that should be mentioned is reporting. Reporting is and has been growing for quite some time in the last, I'd say, decade. It's gotten really sophisticated. Any store or marketplace that you use will have reporting built into it. Amazon has its seller dashboard. Shopify has its dashboard. Everybody should sort of be aware at a surface level of how their business is performing. As soon as you log in, you're kind of slapped in the face with that data on a day-to-day basis. So outside of those reports that are kind of native to your marketplace or your store, there are third-party softwares that are available that can not only kind of dive deeper into the data for you and give you insights that maybe that dashboard doesn't inherently tell you, but they can also kind of trend things out for you, help you understand on a profitability level what products are doing well, what products aren't doing well, and understand the cost of your goods that are being sold. And something that is, I guess, kind of a faux pas, or something that it needs to be said, is that selling a lot of something doesn't mean that it's going to be profit every single time. It sounds counterintuitive, and then once you explain it, it's like, okay, duh, that makes sense. But if you're paying a lot for something to be stored, or you're paying a lot for it to be acquired, maybe in the manufacturing price, and then your profit margin isn't super high, maybe you're selling a lot of it, but it could be that something that you're not paying anything to store. It's a lot lighter of a product, a lot easier to make, more simple. It could be that you're selling less of that second product, but it ends up being more profitable for you. So don't assume that because you're selling a lot of a product that it is making you profitable, because there's a lot more to it than just I'm selling something, I'm selling a lot of it, and it's making me money. So things to consider here are shipping and storage, the cost of acquiring it. So not only that manufacturing, but the fulfillment and all those other fees that we talked about. And then One thing that you can do to kind of counteract this, and just like a little tip here, is utilizing competitor pricing. Some apps won't have this built in natively, but Amazon is an easy one to call out because they have a tool directly made for this, which is a competitive price threshold. They have a utility that you can set it so that it monitors the pricing of similar goods in the marketplace and can adjust the price to kind of undercut the competition and make sure that you're competitive. If your marketplace or store doesn't have that built in natively, it would be good to at least look around at the competition. I'm sure you probably already do, but nothing beats being able to understand your market and understand where you fit in that competitive landscape. So just a tip there. And so we'll talk about limiting the expense. So with expenses, there's stuff that you're going to have to do no matter what, right? Like you're going to have to pay listing fees. You're going to have to pay your referral fees. And when chargebacks come up, there's a lot of unavoidable expenses that you're going to run into. But there are things that you can do to kind of filter out that noise and lower it as much as possible, just to minimize the impact that it's having on your profit. So first thing we'll talk about is looking for credits that are offered by the sellers of the marketplaces. A really easy one to call out here is eBay. eBay will sometimes, when you win a dispute, they'll send you, or they'll have a credit that's available for you. So you have to make sure that you're kind of keeping track of that and claiming those credits. Same thing with bidder fees. If somebody puts a bid on an auction and it falls through, a lot of times you're entitled to either a relisting credit or the refund of the bidder fees because the item did not sell. So making sure that you don't lose those little nickel and dime fees that you're paying on stuff like that is important, especially in the case where something falls through and you didn't have control over it. And this is pretty related to just monitoring your stores closely on a daily basis, keeping track of claims, invoices, damages, and returns, and getting them done as soon as possible. One, ensures that you're in tune with how your business is performing. You're not taking hits on your reputation because things aren't done in a timely manner. But in the term of, or in related to Amazon, something like that, if you don't take care of those damages or returns in a timely manner, Amazon could essentially tell you that you can't relist the item at all because it's been too long. So just staying on top of things is always a good idea. Doesn't matter what we're talking about in terms of your store, but it can impact your profits in that way, and that you're kind of minimizing the damage that these things do to your profit. Some other things to consider would be like bundling items. If you see people buy certain things together pretty frequently, bundling them together to save on shipping costs, make sure they're shipped in the same package, and then optimizing your shipments by their weight. So making sure that there's less open space in packaging, and then using thinner packing paper, stuff like that, all definitely adds up, especially when you're scaling and you have more orders to fulfill. It definitely kind of piles up. And then something we talked about before, but being decisive about what you sell is important here too. If you know for sure that you want to sell a specific catalog of items, you might want to consider not having them fulfilled by Amazon if they're super heavy. Maybe work out something specific with a like a shipping carrier outside of Amazon to save money on something like that. So take into account all of the weight of your items, how much it's costing Amazon to fulfill them if you're doing that fulfilled by Amazon route. So just really consider what you're selling and what you're putting out there, and think about how you can kind of rearrange things to make sure that you're paying as little in that inventory storage and the fulfillment as possible. And then if you do have a custom store or standalone store like Shopify, you can optimize your checkout workflow. So things like buy now buttons, trust signals, and then like recommended products are all things that like encourage people to continue to buy from your platform, and feel safe in doing so, right? So if they see that you've made the process of checking out as easy as possible for them, they don't have to add to cart and then go to cart and then check out. You can hit buy now if they know that they're only going to buy that one thing, and it takes them to check out immediately. So things like that can really indirectly impact the profit that you receive as a business. And then some more tips here for just expanding and planning for growth in general. Before you expand to another channel, you want to make sure that your current platform is profitable before you start expanding. This isn't a one-size-fits-all rule, obviously. Maybe you are planning on kind of doing a rapid expansion where you hit a couple different marketplaces with you have a plan in place to kind of hit the ground running. That's all well and good, but if you're taking the safe approach and you want to make sure that you're doing things one step at a time, I would make sure that your current store is profitable and that you feel comfortable with how your current store is performing before you start looking at other stores. Or if your current store is not profitable and you're wondering why, and you feel like maybe going to a different marketplace is the move for you, just understand what fees you're going to pay or what sort of expenses you're looking at on that next platform before you make the jump, because it could be that you're not fully aware of the expense that comes with starting on that platform. Like Amazon could seem like the easiest and cheapest way to get into the market, but with all the fees you end up paying, it could mean that you're taking less profit home. Whereas you could start on something like Walmart, not pay a whole lot up front, and start to see that profit earlier on. And sort of in that same vein, finding a plan in any of these marketplaces or stores that fits your budget is super important. So don't just immediately look at the cheapest plan and say, that's the one for me. If there's maybe a higher budget plan that gives you more access to more tools and discounts and things that might benefit you in the long run, just consider everything that's available to you. Don't immediately go with the cheapest option because it could end up being that the more expensive plan is going to give you more benefit in the end. One thing that's kind of an underrated hack, and I used to work at Discover in a past life. So this was sort of a tip that was native to me since I was younger. Consider when you have expenses, and this doesn't even just apply to your store. If you pay something every single month and you know you're going to have to pay it, it's accounted for every single month or every single year, it makes sense to use a credit card that gives you cash back on those purchases, because you're just making money back at that point for something that you would have paid for anyways. And some credit cards will give you higher cash back depending on what it is that you're paying for. So shop around for a credit card that gives you the highest yielding cash back rewards, especially when you're paying for your expenses and costs, because it's going to be stuff that you're paying for anyways. You might as well minimize, again, some of that cost, that blow to your profit, and get that money back. If your product is niche, find that target market. If you're selling something that isn't like a generic product or something that anybody could buy, like a towel or a shirt or something like that, it's worth it to kind of invest in understanding what your demographic is, right? So you want to know the type of people that you're trying to sell to, what appeals to them, what branding they look for, the things that they find important in their branding. All of these things can contribute to people's trust in your brand. But the more targeted you are with your marketing efforts, whether it be email marketing, ads, or just branding your store, it gives people an idea of the type of brand that you are and gives them confidence in buying from you. This should go without saying, but using Facebook, Instagram, and more importantly, TikTok lately is kind of vital in expanding your reach. You're trying to kind of make it big. Everybody uses some form of one of these pieces of social media. So look into using ads on any of these platforms or creating a brand TikTok and keeping up with trends. I know that can be a lot. I myself I hate the idea of being on TikTok and kind of putting myself out there in that way, but it is a valid way to expand your business, and it can really propel you to a lot higher of heights than you would think. So just something to consider. And then again, just creating a recognizable brand, not only in your store. I know that if you're running like a marketplace, you might not be able to control the branding necessarily on your Amazon site, aside from like maybe some banners and product pictures and stuff like that. But in your packaging, creating custom stickers for your orders, like tags and stuff like that, will definitely elevate the buying process for people. And while this isn't necessarily a way to avoid fees, but it is a way to kind of increase the profitability of your business by just making people feel a little bit more comfortable buying from you and encouraging that buying process. All right, and it's important to talk about technology here when we're talking about growth. technology and the way that it connects with our stores and social media and all the things we do in our life is it's growing rapidly. It's always growing. It's always changing. And it's important to understand how your workflow fits into this whole conversation and where you can take it to make sure that you're getting the most out of your stores and your marketplaces and anything else that comes with your business. So the big conversation that I've been having lately is the difference between being multi-channel and omni-channel. So multi-channel is when you have maybe multiple stores or points of contact between you and your customers. So like a physical store, a mobile app, and maybe an Etsy store or a Shopify store. You can have all those stores and maybe manage them all independently and have an integration maybe between one or two of them. That's multi-channel. That means that you have all these channels and you manage them. Omni-channel is kind of a step above or a step beyond in that you have all these multiple stores, avenues for customers to go to find your brand, but they're all interconnected. And generally, this is through integrations. So things that connect your store to your mobile app, to your like your email marketing, all of those things should work in tandem to be omni-channel. And really, omni-channel is the kind of the pinnacle of how an online store or online presence should work. And the reason behind this is because you're not only able to see everything at a glance from either a dashboard or a tool that lets you see across your stores or your channels, but you're able to keep that data centralized and use it to make decisions, lower your overhead cost on managing things independently, and again, giving you that bigger picture across everything. So when we're talking about using data and being omni-channel and what that means for your business, you want to use the data that you're given to make decisions and I guess further grow your business and scale. So a couple ways that you can do this is using the data to kind of drill down on your best-selling products. So an example of this, Webgility has an analytics app that we offer with a Webgility subscription, and you're able to see, since you have your accounting connected with Webgility, you can see what it costs to acquire or procure your product. And then you can see what you made on the product after any taxes or fees that the marketplace sold, which gives you a full picture of what it costs to actually sell that product and what profit you made off of it. So drilling down on what is selling for you, you can then turn around and make sure that you're acquiring more of that product and keeping more of that in stock so that you can sell more of it. And that's I would say probably the most obvious form of using data to improve your business. But kind of on the flip side, you can see those poor performing products, the ones that aren't selling well, or maybe you're taking a huge loss in the acquisition of the product and manufacturing of it. You can start to carry less of those products and phase them out if you feel like they're just not cutting it in your market. So utilizing the data to cut out on the fluff maybe in your store, the stuff that you don't need, and double down on the stuff that's working for you. Another thing you can do is use the data from your store, maybe from heat maps or in like your conversion rates, to see where people are getting lost in the selling process. So if you're noticing that people are dropping off before they check out, or maybe they add it to cart and then they abandon their cart, you know that something is kind of pulling them away from the store before they're able to kind of complete that purchase. So then you can optimize it based on the data that you're given to kind of try and keep them in the store, like a reminder. Something you might see, and I get emails from this pretty frequently, is a reminder that your cart has been abandoned. So a couple things you can do here to kind of reduce the impact that might have. It cuts down on data entry and redundancy, and you spend less time bouncing between apps and stores. You can make large scale changes and offer discounts across your stores and stuff like that as well. And the last thing here would be utilizing automation. I know we're going a little bit over time, so I want to get to the Q&A here, but using automation to, I guess, cut down on all that manual work and make things work for you automatically on the back end means that your orders and accounting, your inventory management and listing, shipping labels and fulfillment, purchasing, and any expenses, fees, payouts, anything that is coming from the marketplaces that you have to pay can all be centralized. It can all be done for you in the background. Kind of another thing that I like to plug is utilizing AI to kind of analyze your data and make those decisions, help you make those decisions. I wouldn't let it make the decisions for you, but plugging maybe into ChatGPT, plugging in your data set if you're comfortable with that, and giving it the chance to kind of analyze your data and understand what trends you should be looking at and maybe what you should double down on. And then kind of another way that you can utilize automation is using a chatbot. Not everybody has access to a support team that can frequently answer questions and kind of maintain that customer interaction. So utilizing a chatbot to answer the easy questions and kind of filter out the stuff that maybe could be done by a bot is a easy way to kind of reduce overhead cost and keep a professional, I guess, branding for your store and for your business. So now we can get to the Q&A. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they wanted to talk about in terms of their store? It doesn't necessarily even have to be related to fees or expenses. If you had questions just on your store or your marketplace or growth or really anything you wanted to ask, feel free to ask it in the chat. I'll give it a couple minutes just to make sure we can answer some questions and get to any conversations maybe you guys wanted to have. All right, looks like Omar asked a question. How do I know I'm ready to open another online store? So really there's a couple answers to that question. I think ultimately it comes, and this might be a lame answer, but it comes down to, do you feel like you're ready? Do you feel confident that you are selling a product or have a catalog that will be successful on another platform? Things to consider to kind of get to that point of confidence would be, again, is your store that you're currently running profitable? If this is a second or third store, understand, I would just do your homework on the store that you're changing to and understand what you're going to be paying monthly or yearly to keep that store running at its basis level. And then maybe test some new products here and there on that new store if you feel like you're ready to take the dive. All right. Any other questions? I appreciate you guys coming out. I do want to remind everybody that the recording for this webinar will be sent out either today or tomorrow once I cut it and make sure that it's ready to be sent out. Look for a post-event email that'll include a link to a blog that kind of goes over the similar conversation, has some more data points, resources to kind of back up what we've been talking about, and kind of give you more insight into what these fees look like. The blog post that we'll link will have each individual store's listing fees, referral fees, any fees that you need to be aware of to kind of start your journey. So a lot of useful information in there for you. All right, another question from Omar. Do you have any recommendations for maintaining a consistent brand experience between stores? I love that question. It's something that I've talked about a little more recently with our Instagram reels and some of the videos that I put out regarding product listings. So one big thing that I think gets taken for granted is the images and video and branding that you put out on your stores and products themselves. So one, you want to make sure that if you're taking pictures of your products, try to get them in like a consistent background. Make sure they're as high resolution images as possible. But having that consistent background is such an easy way to make it feel more professional and consistent between all of your products. And even if you're on different stores, having the same images will give people confidence that you are the same business. You maybe source your products yourself. They don't have to feel like they're maybe buying a generic item from China or something like that. Even if it is a generic item from China, which is always an option, kind of taking these little steps can make people feel like they're buying from a professional site that has an investment in their products and their experience. Things like video, 360-degree video are great. Using a brand color template is really good too. So I would establish like a color palette that you use across your brand with like the hexadecimal codes for each color to make sure that it's the same across all of your platforms. So a lot of the color is like coloring and backgrounds and images that you use, that will do most of the heavy lifting for you. If you have a logo, present that as much as possible. I think those are probably the most important things to maintaining that brand experience. But any messaging you have should be consistent across your platforms too. So if you have messaging on your, let's just say your personal website, maybe you use a Shopify, you want to include the same messaging on your Amazon or on your mobile app or whatever platforms you decide to expand to, so that people again can recognize that it's the same store and feel confident. Sorry, that might have been a little long-winded, but all right. Any other questions? Want to make sure we get through any of your guys' questions. If you guys didn't know what Webgility does, I know we might have maybe a customer that uses Webgility on this webinar, but if you're not a current customer of Webgility, we do one, automation. I know I talked a little bit about that between your stores and accounting. So if you have a QuickBooks Online or desktop subscription and maybe an Amazon or Shopify, we can connect the two, pull in your orders, post them to QuickBooks for you so you don't have any of that manual data entry. And then things like analytics, shipping automation, inventory listing, inventory management. So there's a lot of capability that Webgility offers. If you are interested in kind of learning more about Webgility or scheduling a demo with us, reach out to sales@webgility.com or go to the website, just webgility.com. There's a schedule a demo or start a free trial button there for you to kind of start your journey. You can also email me directly. I know I included my email in one of the beginning slides, but it's just john.may@webgility.com. Not even just for sales inquiries, but if you have any questions or wanted to know anything about Webgility or kind of pick my brain for anything e-commerce related, feel free. I'm more than happy to share whatever knowledge I have for whatever that's worth, and kind of help you guys out in any way that I can.